Welcome, Robert.
Thanks, Jules.
Nicely distanced at the
Sure.
end of the piano. So I'd like to go back, as we do with many of our guests, down the time tunnel, where music begins for you. What's the first music you ever heard?
There was this sort of haze behind me of English balladeers. The BBC wasn't very kind to youth culture in those days. But every now and again on two-way family favourites on a Sunday lunchtime, some serviceman in Cyprus would send messages back to mom and dad and request a song. And I think it was maybe Hound Dog, I think, Elvis. I mean, that's the kind of lock-in.
Yeah.
It was an opiate. Something happened when I heard the sound of that record. It certainly made me put my stamp collection to one side for a bit.
You'd heard Elvis. Did you go to gigs? What did you do? Hear somebody playing in a pub? Could you do gigs yourself?
My dad's brother and his wife were maybe 11 years younger than my father, so they were really still into, and they were great dancers, and they took me to a few shows. So I saw Cliff a couple of times, and those really nice package tours that came through to Wolverhampton Gaumont. So here's a bill. I mean, opening the show was Mickey Most and the Most Men. The Rolling Stones did their first package tour, and then you had Bo Diddley with Jerome Green and the Duchess, and Little Richard supporting Bamalama Bamaloo.
Well, all on the same bill.
And then the Everleys closing the show.
Blimey, that's bigger than one of our hootenannies.
Yeah.
All in the Wolverhampton Gaumont.
All in the Wolverhampton Gaumont, yeah. And I remember going to the stage door, because I didn't know about stage doors, but my artist said, maybe we'll see them leaving. How many times have I seen a stage door since? But not from that side. And so I saw Little Richard come out the door into his car, and he looked like he'd come from a man from Mars, because he'd got the makeup on. I hadn't finished my French homework, and I was there in the cold Wolverhampton night going, there's something going on here I don't know about, but it's quite intriguing.
You talked about seeing the blues and discovering the blues. Could you go and see blues people?
Yeah. I might be old, but what I saw, like all old guys, you say, I saw Bukka White and Skip James and The Wolf. I saw Little Walter. It was Memphis Slim, Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee, and all that stuff. It was at Birmingham Town Hall. And the thing is, it was a hallowed environment. People were just hanging, suspended for this sound.
The British performer who brought a lot of the blues people over who you went to see, you were talking about, was Chris Barber.
Yeah. Crucial.
He was like the door which sort of opened a lot of people's understanding of all of that music.
Definitely. And the thing is, because he got the clue, because of his link and his love of New Orleans music, that sort of meld down right at the bottom of the Delta in Louisiana, the kind of hitch between New Orleans blues and the kind of jazz feel was all about rhythm, and that's perfect for Dixieland. I saw him about a year or so ago in Worcester, and he was flogging his CDs out front, and he must have had 10 different CDs. It broke the bank for me. I tried to get an MU discount.
Did he give you one?
No, no. But he took the leg off a chair. I mean, he was so enthusiastic about stuff, and his points of reference, brilliant. Really.
Yeah, and the people. So we've got a clip to see Chris playing there. He told me once that when Sister Rosetta Tharpe first came over with her electric guitar, she said, "Here's all my parts here's the music from Lucky Millander's big band." And he said, "But I can't, none of us can read music." She said, "Well, that's great, nor can I." And they just tore her up and threw it in the air. If only we had it now, we could have used it. Anyway, there we are.
Yeah.
But so you were talking about you listening to Elvis on the radio and being drawn into that world and going and singing the blues. When did you realise that it was something that you could actually do yourself and connect with people singing?
Well, I didn't realise it at all. Basically, we had a group at school, and by this time, everybody was actually desecrating Chuck Berry tracks. I mean, it was the world's worst rhythm sections in the world, were young kids in England trying to play that backbeat thing that Chuck had going. So the school, this band in the year that I was in, the singer got sick, and they had a gig at somewhere near Derby, Swaddling Coat, the Rink, Swaddling Coat. And they said, well, you come to the gigs a lot. You know these songs. I said, yeah, I know. They said, well, we hear you singing all the time. Sing. So I did. So I started playing a local dance hall where the Beatles had come through and people like that. And I was off.
So you sort of loved it straight away, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, I loved John Lee Hooker and Jimmy Reed. You know, I liked that city blues. It was very confident. And who would know that, you know, that like songs like Boom Boom, the Hooker stuff, it got into the top 30 in the UK. I mean, it wasn't just about some secret society. It was like people loved the spring and the sex of the whole lilt of that music.
The next person you've chosen is a person from the blues world, which is Otis Rush.
Well, talking about the country blues singers before, you know, Skip James and John Estes, people like that. And out of that, obviously, there was a big movement into Chicago, into the urban areas.
Legend.
Yeah.
Well, you were talking as well how you were sort of taken from the blues, doing your first gigs and realising it was quite a challenge and learning all maybe some of the tricks of the trade or whatever it would be. When you look back, what do you think the main factor of your huge success was?
I think the three people behind me, really, to be honest. I think if you can get three guys to play with vindication the way that Jimmy Jonesy and Bonzo did, I could write sort of lyric and melody and stuff and try and figure out where I fit it in. A lot of the time, even though I wrote a lot of songs one-on-one with Jimmy, it was a matter of, there was so much colour in what they did. And again, really, we were always developing. And that didn't always suit the critique, but it has to suit the individual player, because if you create one whole lot of love, how many do you need? You know, so we were always moving, always developing. Sometimes it goes on forever, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, but that was what it was all about. It was really exciting. I mean, it was sometimes it was brilliant, sometimes it was not, but it was exactly what it should have been.
It must have given you the opportunity, being like sort of a tremendous success all over the world, particularly in America, to see a lot of the blues artists you'd admired.
Yeah, I felt really, it's a very strange feeling for us in Zepp. We could go to see the Bobby Bland Orchestra playing at the Burning Spear and seeing Junior Wells playing at the Checkerboard Lounge. You found people playing in their own environment, and then they were playing it for real. Bobby Bland was insane. And I remember Bonzo got up and played. Somehow he was invited to get up and play, and he did Further On Up the Road and Turn On Your Love Light.
What a great evening. Led Zeppelin drummer gets up with Bobby Blue Bland. I mean, what a thing. That must have been a great evening.
And the thing is, he really did the job, because the guys were playing with him. It wasn't rock he was playing, you know.
Yeah. The next person you've chosen is Lucinda Williams. What have you chosen and why have you chosen Lucinda?
We've become, all of us in my gang over the last few years have become really good friends with Lou and her stable of chums. And we played together quite a lot in the last 12, 18 months.
I have been in one of the most sort of popular rock and roll groups in the world ever, and I've just thought, well, I've done that, thanks very much, I'm going to not do anything else now. But you're constantly experimenting, constantly finding new music, constantly working with interesting people, going around the world and discovering great music. In fact, there's an album coming out of lots of your different work. And you do a podcast as well where you go into the details of things, don't you?
Bottom line is, my first solo recordings were 1966, but when Led Zeppelin came to an end, I knew I couldn't try and create another Zeppelin. I just had to do this stuff which would be as ever I wanted it to be. So I teamed up with guitarist Robbie Blunt, and we put a band together and started to record. And I got a call from Phil Collins, and he said, John Bonham was the inspiration behind my playing, and I'd like to come and play with you and play for you. So he played on the first two albums, and it was great. I was off. And so I didn't think about those songs because I'm busy thinking about the next thing I want to do. How can I change the way I approach a song or whatever it is? And the idea of putting these songs together and taking them out of context, everything lives in a different light. So
11 solo albums. The next person you've chosen.
Well, Ali Farka Touré, the whole deal of bringing West African music to a bigger audience, a bigger critique. I think really single-handedly at the beginning of all this, Justin Adams, who, my brother, went to Mali and he'd been working with a French band called Lojo, and the connections took him in 71, 72, there in the Atlas Mountains. So I felt very comfortable there, and I can speak a deal of French. I started learning Moroccan Arabic, and I started feeling really like the whole place suited me really good. What more could we want than to be invited to go to the Festival of the Desert, 60 kilometers north of Timbuktu? Just get on a bus in Wolverhampton and...
This person you've chosen is another Nashville person, I think.
I was fortunate to be on the same bill with Jason Isbell some months back. It was a particularly good night with Lucinda and her band and this guy who I'd heard a couple of cuts on the radio, but overseas, and very interested in him. His songwriting is very poignant. He's a very important guy for the future of telling the story of America and telling the story of Americans. I think he's a great talent, and I was really amazed, very moved by his work, and I can't wait to see him again.
When you say great songwriter, what do you think it is that makes him great as a songwriter? Is it his words?
Well, he's bringing some stuff home, which you could wrap it up in satin and silk and put a little bow on it, but he goes right to the point in this particular song, and I think it's just great. It's immediate. You can feel slightly uncomfortable by lyrics sometimes. You certainly got to be aroused, woken up occasionally, especially with the way things are panning out over there, if not over here as well.
So in a moment, we'll see Jason Isbell. The Digging Deep album, I'm listening to a lot. There's so many different facets to it. You can keep coming back and finding something new in it. So it's wonderful that's that. Thank you for choosing the superb selection that you have made available for us here this afternoon. Thank you for joining us, Robert Plant.
Thank you very much. Always a great pleasure to see you and sing along with you. Yeah, great.